This must be an absolutely devastating decision as far as the family is concerned. But the police are saying they are assuming that she has drowned. What actual evidence have they got of this?
I think that their kind of, as they call it, their working hypothesis is based on the fact that they have checked everything in the area around the river where she could possibly have gone, in terms of every inch of the area has been searched, but also any exits out of the area, including CCTV, all of that has been checked. And there's been a general inquiry, people asking for dash cam, that kind of thing, in case there's any way they could possibly have missed her leaving. So I think a lot of it is based on that. There's no way she could have left the area. And there's obviously, it was mentioned yesterday, there's this missing 10 minutes of time that they haven't quite accounted for, but it's such a short period of time. It's difficult to understand how anything else could have happened than her potentially accidentally falling into the river.
Well, yes, but you see, you look at, it's horrible to get down to these sort of questions, isn't it? But you look at the River Wyre, it's hardly sort of fast flowing, or certainly in that particular area. You sort of think somebody, it's a fairly busy area for dog walkers. You would have thought something would have been seen if someone had fallen in.
Yeah, and I think that has been the difficult thing all along, is that they just have no evidence. They don't seem to have any eyes on her in that critical period of time. So what on earth happened? There's also, of course, the dog. The dog was found probably like 5-10 minutes after she vanished off the Microsoft Teams call that she was on. She'd not logged off. She just put the phone down, and then in that next 10 minutes she vanished. And the dog was found very quickly. And the dog was, Willow was dry, so had obviously not gone in the river. And then her phone was found quite quickly as well. So what happened in that 10 minutes? A very short period of time in which for somebody to go missing. And obviously, I think the police have been trying to keep spirits up of the people in the Lancashire area as well. They've not wanted to over speculate, understandably. They don't want to upset the family. But the family themselves are probably the ones that they've been interviewed, and obviously they're desperately clinging on to any hope, and that's absolutely, what any human being would do. But it's so difficult because there are so few answers. They have built up a timeline which the police have shared quite widely, but there is still this missing 10 minutes, and I think until we know exactly what's happened in those 10 minutes, we're just not going to know what's happened to Nicola.
The police went to great lengths yesterday in describing what she was actually wearing at the time: a quilted coat with a gilet over the top of it, a pair of boots. But I mean, as Stephen has said, and as you have confirmed, the river is not fast flowing or even particularly deep at that point. And she was, as we understand it, a very good and strong swimmer. As we say, these are difficult questions to be asking at this time. But are the police going to be looking further downriver, perhaps, if she had fallen in, where she might have been washed and taken much, much further away from the point where the investigation is concentrated at the moment?
Well, there are. The river is actually there are some quite deep sections of the river, and it is very muddy, and it has been quite wet recently. So I think realistically, they have to do that. They have to be checking the river along the way. There is a tidal section. It does move a lot. It can move fairly rapidly underneath. It might look quite still on the surface, but they have been very thorough in that particular area. But as you say, they are having to watch the river network very carefully. There was an incident yesterday where they went to certainly kind of CSI forensics were checking another section of the river, and obviously one thing, people assumed that was her found, but it wasn't. But I think that's because they are jumping to any clue, anybody spotting anything, so they are rightly having to investigate everything, every potential sighting properly.